All right, here we go. GBG, Green Bay Greg, episode 13. Fabulous. All right, thanks for joining me. Um, Whether you're joining me on the RTF Sports Network, maybe you're watching me live on Facebook. If you are, thank you. Or maybe you're following me on YouTube, which usually shows up about the day after. Mike can usually get that on the YouTube. So wanted to thank you for joining me. This is going to be a little bit different of an episode. I'm going to jump into some things, but I'm going to skip around a little bit and give different perspectives. I talk all the time about how my show, what I try to do on it is get into sports subjects, but talk about how its effect kind of jumps into mainstream society. In some cases, touch on stuff like that. So let's just dive right into it. First of all, we will get into some sports talkers. There is some sports going on. And the PGA Championship just ended yesterday. And Colin Matsugawa, I still don't know if I pronounced that right, 23-year-old, won the PGA Championship. It's the first major of the year this year. It was exciting. I'll be honest, at one point on the back nine, there were 7 guys tied at 10 under par. It was fun to watch. And I'm going to get into a little fun aspect of that whole idea in my GBG challenge. But what I can say about it now is on the 16th hole, which is seen as an easier hole, the PGA Championship, the people who designed the pin placements wanted guys to go for it. Pull out your driver, little bit longer in a 300, little bit more than 300-yard par 4. And Colin lined up, smashed the crap out of it, drove it, bounced on the green to within 8 feet of the pin. Can you imagine that? Close your eyes and imagine what it would be like to be in the tee box on a par 4 over 300 yards away and drive the ball within 8 feet of the cup. I can't imagine that. Okay, for those of you who know me, one time about 20 years ago, I did hit a hole-in-one on a par 4. Similar type situation, although I had a buddy who laid up on it. Perfect shot in a scramble. The other 3 of us went for it. Had a great wind, blah, 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 hit a hole-in-one on a par 4. But it was fun to watch him do that because I was a professional who did it, and he actually tried to do it. I got luckier. I think that the phrase was even a blind squirrel catches a nut. Yes, I was blind. I got luckier than anything. So, but no, it was fun to watch him, another 23-year-old young guy, because it's fun to watch golf from my perspective, watching a whole bunch of guys. I'm Tiger Woods' age, and yeah, it was fun to watch his dominance over the course of 10 years. But now that dominance is gone, it's fun to watch a golf tournament, and any one of 15 or 20 guys could win. So that's my sports talkers this week. I'm going to get into You're Better Than That. You're Better Than That last week was Dusty Baker, manager of the Houston Astros, for being offended that teams are, rifling at these guys and teams are upset with the Houston Astros because they won a World Series based on choreographed cheating. Well, yesterday, the Oakland Athletics and the Houston Astros got into a bench clearing brawl because one player on the Oakland Athletics was actually hit twice in like the 5th and the 7th inning. It was like back-to-back at bats. And then the pitching coaches from the Houston Astros are jawing at this guy from the from the Oakland A's as he's going to first base. You guys, I got on Dusty last week. I'll get on the rest of your team. Houston Astros, look, you deserve it. This is where you sit back and you say, hey, look, we got to take our medicine. Don't be beating guys from the other team. I don't care why, for jawing at you. Suck it up. You guys deserve this. You're going to have to deal with this for a year. Just because we dealt with COVID, just because we dealt with some civil unrest, doesn't mean that people forgot that you guys are a bunch of cheaters and you won a World Series based on cheating. Deal with it. You guys just have to deal with it for 50 more games, then the playoffs, and then you know what? The sport, the baseball media is going to move on to the next thing. But you're going to have to deal with it for now, so take your medicine. All right. We're going to skip the moment of Zen this week, and we're going to get right into the outside the arena. And that's because today, which Monday, August 10th, is when I'm kind of filming this live. Big story developed in the world of sports. College football, all but the Power Five conferences, all but pretty much said that they're not going to have football this fall. It's already been kind of leaked that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are already in agreement. They just have to have some meetings to decide what to do, and the other three conferences more than likely are going to, follow suit. The big thing in the meetings yesterday was that no one wanted to be the first one to say, hey, we're not going to play sports. But then again, no one wanted to be the last. So it looks like that. So what I'm going to talk about in the Outside the Arena segment of this show is the two different perspectives of that. Now, first of all, let's get to the greed. Let's get right to it. The NFL. How does this affect the NFL? Well, it's been reported by several different sources that if there's going to be no college football, well, that opens up the whole landscape to pro football. They can play 7 nights a week if they want, because there's no competition. It was always understood that that pro and college football did not want to step on each other's toes because there's enough to go around. Well, now they're saying there's already football on Thursday nights, Sunday all day and night, and Monday. Well, why don't they just take over Fridays and Saturdays too? Well, here's why I don't think they should do that. Here's my suggestion. First of all, the reason why I don't think they should do that is because there is something called the law of diminishing returns. Here's an example of that. You can have ice cream for dinner, and you might like it. You can have ice cream again for dinner, and again, and again. But after 6 or 7 times, you're going to get sick of it. And you're going to get out of shape. You're going to get fat. You're going to be unhealthy. Just like, you can go to a baseball game and you can love, getting there, sitting down, having a hot dog. But if you have a hot dog at the top of every inning for an entire game, eventually you're going to hate the taste of hot dogs. Well, if the NFL decides to play Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Thursday, it's going to get to be to the point where people aren't going to watch anymore, because at some point enough is enough. I understand that football is king, pro football is king, but there are other circumstances. Now, let's just say that there's a lot of men out there that want to watch football, or women, men or women, and your Sundays right now are dedicated to football. And then you know what? You're going to watch the game on Thursday night as long as it's interesting. You're going to watch the game on Monday night as long as it's interesting. Now you're going to add Saturday. And let's say let's say the NFL does the schedule on Saturdays the way that they do for Thanksgiving. You have a noon game, then you have one standalone 3:30 game, and then you have a primetime game. Everyone's going to love that. Now let's add a Friday night game. At some point, your significant other or the rest of your life is going to say, whoa, enough's enough. You don't have to watch football 5 days a week. The law of diminishing returns. At some point, it's just going to become too much. So I think that the best thing for football to do is, wait, continue with your Thursday, your Sunday, and your Thursday night game, your Sunday schedule, and your Monday night game. And then once hockey, the NBA and Major League Baseball is done, which wraps up mid to late October, now let's just say you're 8 weeks into the season in the NFL, and now you have 8 games left to go. Now you can start looking at, a Saturday, noon game, 3:30 game, primetime game, standalone games. This is going to give more teams that national attention, that national exposure. It's going to give people like me, a displaced fan, a Green Bay Packer fan living in Minnesota, more opportunities to see my team, because they're going to do a lot of that. They're going to make sure that that there's more teams that are, shown. They know that there's a lot of Packer fans in Minnesota, and they know that there's a lot of Minnesota fans on the western side of Wisconsin. So they're going to want those, different teams. There's a couple of pro teams in Ohio. There's a bunch of pro teams all in Texas. They're going to want opportunities to not have those games laying on top of each other. So you have more opportunities to watch more games. The New York Jets and New York Giants. That's just my personal opinion. I think what they're going to do. But I think that it'd be great once you get into week 9 or week 10 of the season, you have that, that Saturday, 3 games on Saturday, 1 game on Thursday, 1 game on Monday, and the rest of the games sprinkled throughout Sunday. You still hold on to that Sunday, but that's what I think they're going to do. That's what I hope they do. Just don't get in the way of the NBA. Don't get in the way of Major League Baseball. Wait till those seasons end up. We don't need, just because we didn't have sports for a couple of months doesn't need to, we need to be suffocated by it. Let's just take it as it is and have fun with it. I know tonight, there's a Bucks game on, and then there's a Brewers versus a Twins game on. It's going to be fun to click through and watch those things. I also don't need an NFL game on top of that. So enough's enough. have fun with it. And, now the other aspect I want to get into and outside the arena. So outside the arena part 2 is, how does this affect college? I didn't say, how does this affect college football? I said, how does this affect college? Now, there's 2 types of people in the sports world. And those are people who understand that football is king. And then there's a type of people who think someone like me is a sheltered idiot. Here's the thing. It was reported recently recently I saw the stat today, and I've heard different stats, that the average Power 5 school, so that's essentially the top 65 to 70, let's just say 65 to 70 teams, colleges, college football programs, when you start including teams like BYU and Notre Dame, which aren't technically fully in a Power 5, but they do play a lot of Power 5 conferences, you start adding teams like that. Those schools, the schools, not the athletic department, those schools stand to lose around $75 to $80 million this year if they don't have football. That's why this is such a big decision. Now, here's the thing. What are they doing with that $75 to $80 million? They're not building new stadiums every year. They're not, building a new weight room. That money gets filtered down to the university. What does it get filtered down into? The chemistry department, the education, the art department, the music department, the psychology department, the dorms, and mom and dad, most importantly, tuition. So here's the thing. For those of you out there, and I'm not taking sides on this, I'm just stating facts. For the people out there who say, how can they play football? Blah, blah. If you're not talking, football's not important. It is important for the functioning ability of the actual university. They need it. You need football. Otherwise, tuition is going to go up very significantly. Now, here's the other thing. It's like, kids. There's more kids on campus that are doing this. 100,000 people are not showing up on a Saturday to watch some kid do a chemistry experiment. 100,000 people are not spending $80 to $100 to watch, a band recital in the music department, and then turn around and then spend hundreds of dollars at the bar after, and a couple $100 on, tailgating beforehand. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's the society and the culture that we live in. We are living in a culture where football is just that important. It brings revenue into universities and the campuses. I wish it weren't that way. Actually, I really don't care. I think it is what it is. Just deal with it. So the problem is that what are we going to do now? So now kids aren't going to be going to school, more than likely, because I'm just saying right now, more than likely these Power 5 universities just aren't going to be able to sustain life on campus if there's no football. It is that important. And when I say an average of $75 to $80 million, keep in mind that the University of Wisconsin came out and said it's probably closer to $100 million for some of your bigger universities. Imagine what it's like down at LSU or Florida or Auburn or Alabama. You're talking probably $150 million that they're going to be losing just in this football season. Now, here's the thing. Because of that, you might not be able to have in-person schooling because, tuition is going to be too high if you want to, send people you won't be able to afford staffing, to have 40,000 kids on a campus. You're going to force these kids to stay home. Okay, what are the ramifications of that? Well, there's just some classes that kids just can't take online. Sorry, but you can't get a music degree, an art degree, or a chemistry degree by 100% distance learning. At some point, you have to get in front of your instructor and show them that you know how to do what you're supposed to do. So now what happens? Now maybe a kid who would have graduated in 4 years now graduates in 4.5 years, 4.5 to 5. It's a lot of money, mom and dad. Like I said, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that to say blankly or blindly, who cares about football? These Neanderthals shouldn't be playing anyway. There are long-term ramifications of this. So all I'm saying is that it is what it is. It's going to happen. They're not going to play football this year. They're not going to play fall sports. But there's going to be a lot of fallout to it. And it sucks. It sucks. And I just hope that what they do from the college aspect is fix it or figure it out so that they can get back to normal as soon as possible. No, yeah, from a football standpoint, this is a sports podcast. I get it. From a sports podcast standpoint, yeah, there's a lot of athletes. What are you going to do about these kids who were on their last year of their scholarship? Are you going to welcome them back next year? What about the kids who didn't play this year? And, for example, last year, the number one draft pick, Joe Burrow, was not picked to be the number one draft pick going into the year. So, he played his butt off, worked his butt off, played his butt off, led LSU to a national championship season, and now look what happens. He's the number one overall pick, making millions of dollars. If they wouldn't have played the season, who knows what would have happened? Maybe he would have been a second or a third round pick. That was about $30 million worth to him. Now, yeah, that's one person. And yeah, right now, Trevor Lawrence is seen as being the number one overall pick. He'll probably still be the number one overall pick. I think that what's going to happen, and once again, now this is my GBG thought about what's going to happen from the standpoint of college. I think that what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of these kids that are going to be eligible for the draft in April or May or whenever they decide to do it, because that could change. You're going to have a lot more individual workouts. You're going to probably have a combine like they used to do that lasts over a course of a week. That was, okay, now this day is dedicated to the quarterbacks. This day is for the running backs. This day is for the wide receivers. It might be 3 or 4 days or a week for each of these guys. Your individual pro days might be a lot more choreographed, and it might be, scouts from all 32 NFL teams going to watch these guys, watching makeshift practices, whatever the case is. It's going to look different for the next year now that they've inevitably made this decision. And me, as someone who really enjoys sports stories, I'm going to enjoy it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see. It's making chicken salad out of chicken shit. Right now we're living in unprecedented times. I can't remember the last time that an entire season was canceled that didn't have to do with money and politics of ownership versus players. It's never happened in my lifetime. After 9/11, sports were called for a week to 10 days. And then we went back to the way it was. Now you're talking about canceling an entire season, and there's no guarantee it's going to be back in the winter or the spring or the summer or next year. They have to get this virus under control. And do I think that people are going a little crazy with the masks everywhere type attitude? Of course I do. But I'm a 44-year-old guy. I'm not a 68-year-old man. I'm not an 85-year-old woman. I'm not, I'm not in charge of making a decision for 40,000 students on a university campus. So it's a lot easier for me to make these decisions. So I'm not crucifying anyone who does have to. I feel bad because the university president, it's easy to say, just make a decision and stick with it. Well, their decisions that they're making affect a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to lose their jobs because of whatever decision they make. Or if they decide to go in a different route, there could be a lot of people that might get sick. So my point is, take a step back, take a breather, and decide, you know what? Whatever they make, I'm going to try to make the best of the situation. Moving on. To the G. Whoa, microphone check. Check one. The GBG challenge of this week, I'm going to rewind all the way back to the PGA Championship. My dad and I, when it comes to our sports relationship, we follow all sports. He follows a lot more Major League Baseball than I do. We both, as far as like watching the games, I do a little more NBA than he does. We both love football. But the one thing that we do have a bond with is golf, pro golf. And my GBG challenge for this week is based on that. Find a connection with someone. And my example, yes, will be about sports, but it doesn't have to be about sports when you find your connection with someone. For my personal example with my dad is my dad has his favorite golfer. Right now it's Dustin Johnson. So my dad will text me, he'll call me, maybe he's here for a visit. How's DJ doing, son? And I'll have to look, watch the leaderboard, see what it is. Or, hey, did you see how DJ did? That's his favorite golfer right now. Likes watching him play. My favorite golfer right now for this past weekend, for this championship, I was following Brooks Koepka. A lot because of what I talked about on Twist, the Weekend Sports Talk. We had that show on Saturday. And my point that was Brooks Koepka hurt his hip. So I wanted to watch the rest of the weekend to see how he was going to do for the remainder of the week. Usually my favorite golfer going into any tournament is Phil Mickelson. I'm a tall lefty. He's a tall lefty. I like learning from him. Plus, he's also a very intelligent golfer when it comes to explaining the sport. He's been my favorite golfer but on a week-to-week basis, usually it's whatever golfer kind of has the best story. This past week it was Brooks Koepka. I love watching Bryson DeChambeau because I love watching him drive the ball, love watching him hit the ball. It's a lot of fun. My dad, like I said, is on Dustin Johnson. At one point, he really liked watching Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy. When those guys were going head-to-head week after week, he enjoyed watching those two guys compete and other guys. But we have that connection. I know that about him. He knows that about me. So more generally speaking, away from the world of sports, find someone in your life that you want to connect with and find something to connect with them about and make it intentional. It could be a TV show. It could be a book that you're reading. It could be something fun at your office, a coworker. It could be a type of food. Hey, try this, whatever the case is. My point is, we're living in a society right now where we're being told by our government officials, stay away from people. So what I'm telling you is find opportunities to connect with people. If you can't connect face-to-face, then it makes it harder and harder to go out to dinner with a friend, go out to, go see, a parent, a niece, a nephew, whatever the case is, a friend you haven't seen in a while. Maybe it's more difficult because more restaurants are closed, and maybe that person might be, at a different paranoia level than you are when it comes to, COVID-19. So find other ways to connect with that person. Like I said, for me and my dad, it's golf. It's just that fun thing that, that we're doing. Maybe, like I said, you have a favorite TV show, so if that show's on Tuesday nights, how to connect with that person on Wednesday. Hey, just see whatever the show is. Maybe it's something to do, like I said, with a book. Maybe it's something to do with a very general topic, politics. We have an election here in Minnesota, a primary tomorrow. The election's coming up. Maybe it's something fun you want to talk about or learn about with someone. I know with my older brother, we don't exactly agree, 100% on political issues, but we respect each other. So every now and again, we'll start talking about things because we do have common ground when it comes to other things. My point is, be intentional, talk to someone that you might miss, you might not get to see as much, and tell them, hey, let's make this our thing. Because when you do that, when you're more intentional, you get better results. I know this episode of GBG was a little off the map. It is what it is. I want to thank everyone for joining me this week. Until next week, GBG 14, check me on the RTF Sports Network, YouTube, Twist, The Week in Sports Talk, whether it's on the website or on our Facebook page. As always, I appreciate it. GBG out.